credit for bringing orchestral music to the people at the price that the people could afford. Night after night, this packed audience listens to all schools of orchestral music. And I must say that it is the loveliest audience to make music to in the world.
Sir Henry Wood speaking on the occasion of his Golden Jubilee as a conductor in 1938, and it would be very nice to think that if he were with us tonight, he would think the same about the 1994 generation of promenaders. He does, of course, preside at all the proms, as we're reminded by the prominent displayed bust of him by Donald Gilbert. It's a bust which survived the bombing of the Queen's Hall, which lives at the Royal Academy of Music, and which comes here to the Royal Albert Hall for all the seasons of proms. And from its commanding position just below the organ, Sir Henry's likeness looks out over the orchestra into the vast expanse of the hall, which is Sir Henry Wood recording the Serenade to Music in 1938 at the Abbey Road Studios in London. The composer was in attendance, seated on the steps leading to the rostrum in case he was wanted.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have the pleasure of hearing Sir Henry Wood and the Queen's Hall Orchestra record.
Sir Henry Wood may not be ranked among the world's greatest conductors, but he remains one of the truly great figures in British music this century. Asked to name the patron saint of music, children have been known to reply, Henry Wood, and St. Cecilia would be grudging indeed if she didn't allow him to share a little of her glory, in his own country at least. At the Royal Academy of Music in 1944, Sir Henry was honoured with a celebration for his 75th birthday and for the first 50 years of his promenade concerts.
And although we celebrate this anniversary in the year of my promenade concerts jubilee, I assure you I do not contemplate retirement. And I hope to wag the stick until the inevitable claims this old timber.
Vaughan Williams presented Wood with an immense book of tributes from literally thousands of composers and performers. There was scarcely a musician alive whose name didn't appear in its pages. In the words of one, Henry Wood was the godfather of them all. Elizabeth Lutyens composed a woodwind fanfare that was cunningly devised to be played both upside down and the right way up, punningly entitled For Wood. It's performed for the first time for this film by students from the Royal Academy. The ingenuity of this piece is a more appropriate tribute than it might seem. Wood's father, also Henry J. Wood, designed meticulously detailed model steam engines. His only son, Henry, shared a fascination with models and gadgets, and he was to show the same craftsman's talent for putting things together and making them work when he later redesigned the mechanism of British orchestral life. His formal musical training began near the family's London home at the Royal Academy of Music.
When Henry J. Wood came as a student to the Royal Academy of Music, he studied piano, he studied organ, and he studied theory. And he was shaping up as a composer, not as a conductor. There was no instruction in conducting in those days in the Royal Academy, nor did he show any inclination towards it.
But the year after he left the Academy, a travelling opera company responded to an advertisement he'd placed in the stage and engaged him as their conductor. He was still only 20. The novice conductor was to spend most of the next 5 years on the road. Covering a repertoire that ranged from Mozart to the very newest operas of Verdi, he drove the company through a gruelling schedule of up to 6 performances a week.
From then on, grand opera was my hard way of experience. In this way, I learnt, on the hard road of bad orchestras, travelling orchestras, bad and good singers, the art of conducting.
In 1895, he was invited by the manager of the new Queen's Hall to conduct a series of promenade concerts.
Having gone through the rough and tumble of touring opera, he found obviously that he could organise those concerts very well, and what's more, he had an enormous stage presence.
He was just what the audience had been waiting for. When had they ever seen an English conductor with the kind of personality and charisma that really captivates popular imagination? On the platform, Wood was magnetic.
Wood's appearance, in fact, was rather exotic when he was a young man. The flowing locks, the beard, were not at all like most leading British musicians, the composer-conductors of that period. And in 1898, when Queen Victoria summoned Henry J. Wood and the Queen's Hall Orchestra to perform at Windsor Castle, she said to him, "Mr. Wood, are you quite English?" Did the promenade concerts make Henry J. Wood, or did Henry J. Wood make the promenade concerts? Well, the answer is both, because it was his great opportunity, and he made the concerts stick. He became an exciting phenomenon. He was the first British career conductor. He latched onto the two main new or newish composers of the time, Wagner and Tchaikovsky. This was the first Englishman who could persuade an audience, gosh, this is the way to do it.
He went through all the music ever written, I should think. Popular music and serious, classics, opera, everything. And he knew it, knew his scores. He would never bring you in on the wrong beat, and he would soon know who is wrong. He knew his scores inside out.
Conducting a different program every night, Wood needed to be in command of a large repertoire. Just as important, his Queen's Hall Orchestra had to be organised with meticulous efficiency.
He was a master of the orchestra in a dozen different ways. Firstly, it would start with the way he marked the parts and his scores, with very heavy directions for exactly how he wanted it played. This he needed to do because he had very limited rehearsal time. At the beginning, indeed, only 3 rehearsals of 3 hours each for the whole of the 6 proms of the week.
He had the most colossal strength to do that. He just, well, some did say he butchered his way through things, which is a bit cruel, but that gives you the idea of the sort of endurance and the determination.
The essential tools of a conductor's trade are clearly laid out in his book about conducting.
A conductor must have a complete general knowledge of music. He must have a more than slight acquaintance with every instrument of the orchestra. He must play the piano well. He must have an impeccably sensitive ear, as well as rhythmic and interpretive sense. He must be unafraid of the art of gesture. He must be a perfect sight reader and sound musician. He must study the art of singing. He must have a good physique, a good temper, and a strong sense of discipline. The conductor's life should be one of self-discipline first and last.